we're going to learn about converting between fractions and decimals. Fractions and decimals are different ways of writing the same quantity. To convert from a decimal to a fraction, think of the fractional equivalence of place value. After converting a decimal to a fraction, you may need to rewrite the fraction in lowest terms. When we write it in lowest terms, it means we're simplifying it. We will always want to have it in the most simple form we can get the fraction. So as we're going from a decimal to a fraction, we have 3 easy steps. We say it, write it, and then we reduce it. Say it, write it, reduce it. Let's look at the first example. I'm going to say it, 17 hundredths. I'm going to write it, 17 hundredths. And then I'm going to reduce it if possible. I look and I see that 17 is a prime number, so I know this fraction is in its simplest form. Okay, let's look at this next problem. I'm going to say it, 8 tenths. So I'm going to write it, 8 tenths. I see that 8 and 2 both in an even number, so I know it's at least divisible by 2. So I'll divide my numerator by 2. And if I divide the numerator by 2, I have to divide my denominator by 2 as well. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So 4/5. 5 is a prime number, so I know I can't reduce it any further. Next example is 53 hundredths. So I'm going to say it, 53 hundredths, and then write it, 53 hundredths. And then I'm going to reduce it if possible. It's not even, so it's not divisible by 2. 5 plus 3 is 8, so it's not divisible by 3. It's not divisible by 4. Doesn't end in a 5, so it's not divisible by 5. It wasn't divisible by 2 or 3, so it's not divisible by 6. 7 was a trickier one, but we know this isn't a factor of 7, nor 8, or 9, or 10. So 53 is going to be prime, and it's in its lowest form. Let's look at this next example, though. We have a whole number. I read it 1 and 25 hundredths. So I'm going to write it 1 and 25 hundredths. And then I'm going to reduce it. The greatest common factor of 25 and 100 is 25. So I'm going to reduce it to 1 and 1/4. So to go from a decimal to a fraction, I'm going to say it, write it, reduce it. To convert from a fraction to a decimal, I'm going to divide the numerator by the denominator. We can remember it by saying the top dog goes in the house. So if I had a fraction of 1/2, if I say top dog goes in the house, I'm going to have 1 divided by 2. And we can also remember that our fraction bar means divided by, so I could read it 1 divided by 2. Okay, it says convert from a fraction to a decimal. And the first example they give us is 1/8. So I have to say top dog goes in the house. Trying to figure out why I'm writing crooked. Okay, 8 can't go into 1, so I have to add a decimal and a 0. 8 goes into 10 one time with 2 left over. 8 goes into 20 2 times. with 4 left over. 8 goes into 40 5 times. Wherever the decimal was in the house, it has to move up to the rooftop. So 1/8 is equal to 125 thousandths. Our second example, top dog in the house, 7 divided by 20. 20 can't go into 7, so I'm going to add my decimal and a 0. 20 goes into 70 3 times with 10 left over. And then I can say 20 goes into 100 5 times. For the decimal is in the problem, it goes on the rooftop. So 7/20 is equal to 35 hundredths. We can always test it out when we've done this to see if we actually think it works by writing it back as a fraction. We said that 7/20 was equal to 35 hundredths. And I can say 5 goes into 35 7 times. 5 goes into 100 20 times. And so we can see that those two are equal to each other. I want to jump here and look at 1/3. 1/3 is going to be a common fraction that you need to memorize. If I say top dog in the house, 1 divided by 3. 3 can't go into 1, so I add my decimal. 3 goes into 10 3 times with 1 left over. 3 goes into 10 3 times with 1 left over. 3 goes into 10 3 times with 1 left over, and I have a repeating pattern that's going to continue on and on. So if I move my decimal up, I see that 1/3 is going to be equal to 0.3 that keeps repeating. So I can show this as a repeating decimal by writing a bar above the number 3. This tells me that 3 is going to go on and on with no end. This was your lesson today on converting between fractions and decimals. Hope you have a great day.